Hey, it's BAO, and this is Coffee with BAO. This is a series where I talk to really cool people who are doing really cool stuff in business, entertainment, music, pop culture, and more. And I usually like to focus on stuff like their process, their identity, and personal growth. Since this is our very first episode, I'd really love your feedback on what's working and what's not. So please leave a comment if you can, or you can contact me at coffeewithbao.com. Let's get started. So let's introduce our guest. Today I'm hanging out with a fellow Vietnamese American creative. She is a director, producer, and a really great storyteller. She spent years as an award-winning producer at CNN, working on shows such as Larry King Live, and one of my favorites, Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown. More recently, she's been working on her own projects and being on camera, as well as doing all of the background stuff. And one of her projects is a short film for which I made the music called Quan, or in English, Quan 13. Wow, has such a great soundtrack. So here's my friend and collaborator, Hieu Gray.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me, Val.
Of course, thank you for all of this beautiful whatever's on the table. And I wish the podcast people can see this stuff, but can you tell us what we have?
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm a total foodie, so if you're going to come over, then I'm going to feed you. And so I made the trek to Orange County and to pick up some of my favorite dishes. We have some Vietnamese sandwiches, or banh mi, and one of my favorite dishes of all time is banh cuong, which is rice rolls stuffed with pork and mushrooms. And then over here we have boi cuong, or summer rolls, that are rice paper rolls stuffed with shrimp and pork. And of course, I picked up a little special treat for you, a little bao for Bao.
We have a banh bao, which growing up, that's how people teased me and my name. My name is actually Bao. This is really beautiful, and thank you so much. And I think you forgot to tell people that we have Vietnamese coffee.
Yeah, so
That's
it's been like
thinking.
percolating over here.
Yeah, it's been brewing for a little bit while we were setting up. So, Hieu, thank you so much. This stuff is so beautiful, and I'm really glad that we can have this chat.
Yeah.
So we are both, at some point, we were Asians living in the South, which is a cool connection for me to have with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a fascinating Vietnamese American story as well, and I was wondering if you can tell us about how your family specifically ended up in Georgia, of all places.
Of course. The funny thing is that I had to pretty much pull teeth to get my mother to tell me the story of how we came over from Vietnam. Because, it's something that they don't really talk about. And it was the middle of the night. It was not planned at all. And so when they got on the boat, it was just my mother, who was about 7 months pregnant with me, my sister, who was 2 at the time, and my father, and they could only, carry what they could on their bodies.
Yeah.
And so we ended up in a couple different refugee camps in Thailand and in Indonesia, where I was born. And we were there for maybe about six months, and from there traveled to Hong Kong and got the green light to come to America, and of all places, Waycross, Georgia, because that was where our church group sponsored us.
That's crazy that you traveled far and wide even before you were like the age of 1.
Yeah.
For our listeners, the Vietnamese immigrant community, I think we all have these crazy, fascinating stories of like courage and hardship. And, so for everybody here who has a business or who's paying taxes or whatever, contributing to society, like we all have these crazy stories. And it's definitely worth following up and asking people, about their stories. It's really cool. Were there things like challenges that you had growing up in the South as an Asian person?
It was definitely difficult being one of only a handful of Vietnamese Americans, especially in the 80s when it was still,
not as diverse.
Yes, not as diverse. Yeah. And the thing about the South is that it's a lot of like subtle microaggressions. For example, I was at the checkout stand at Walmart, and a woman comes up to me and says, "You don't look like you belong here." But then she follows it up with, "You have the most amazing skin." And so that type of subtle, which I like to think of it as, they feed you a spoonful of vinegar, but then they follow it up with like a spoonful of sugar.
Yeah, and I hopefully people have more exposure these days, so they're more open to other people who don't look like them. But it's definitely the type of polite racism that I've seen in the South. Super polite. When you think about being Vietnamese or being Asian, is there like one mundane, normal thing that kind of sums that up?
I think it is eating rice every day. I don't, like American culture, you have, different things that you can eat, but, for us, having rice every day, if there is not, you are not full unless you've had rice.
That is so true. That's really great. Yeah, rice and fish sauce are, so Vietnamese, and I think that's those two are definitely symbols for me of being Vietnamese. In addition to being like a minority in terms of race, you worked for a long time in the entertainment industry, and I know that women don't hold too many positions of power or decision-making positions there. Were there things that were a challenge to you in terms of gender as well?
It's, I think working at CNN was a very unique place because they do value diversity. And I had a lot of opportunities to, advance and learn from peers. And so I would say that it's, if anything, the challenges came from being second-guessed a lot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Like my decision needs to be backed up by a superior.
Wow. I'm sorry.
But I mean, I think,
that's real,
but I think what happens is because, I don't want to be second-guessed, that means, I have to up my A game, especially in learning about technical skills. And so they're kind of caught off guard by that, and they respect you more for that, for taking the time to, learn about the ins and outs of maybe editing or shooting.
So your A game needs to be like an A++ game.
Exactly, yeah.
That is fascinating to learn your perspective on that, actually. Do you think there are things the industry could do to make things more fair and less uncomfortable for minorities or women or other groups that are not dominant?
I mean, I think things are definitely changing, and one of the things that I see that I think is great is that that the thing that keeps a lot of women and minorities from positions of power is that there's so many gatekeepers, and now there's all these programs to help women and minorities to break through. And I think, the main thing is being able to get your foot in the door, and that's slowly changing and happening.
Wait, so would it help to put more women and minorities as gatekeepers, or do you think the gatekeeper system is kind of defunct?
Oh, I mean, in terms of we need to blow up the gate is what I'm talking about,
That's awesome. You heard her. If you are in the industry, the gatekeeper system, I feel has, definitely I've run into those a few times. Wow, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that. You moved to LA a couple of years ago when we met, and you've been working on your own projects now, post CNN.
Yeah.
Your work, I think, focuses so much on concepts of cross-culture or like combination culture, which I find fascinating because, you know, that's the stuff that I've been living in since I've been in the US. And we worked on a film together which has a lot of good Vietnamese food. Can you give us an elevator pitch for Quan 13?
Sure. It is a food documentary about the Vietnamese diaspora in Paris told through the lens of food.
Specifically different types of Vietnamese food, from traditional to like more modern and more experimental.
Yeah.
We have a trailer of that, and I'm going to play it for the audience right now. It's about 60 seconds. Here we go.
What does it mean to be Vietnamese around the world? There is no better place to start than Paris, where food and culture are so closely intertwined. Since the fall of Saigon in 1975, Paris has become home to one of the oldest and largest Vietnamese communities in the world, Quang 13. I've spent my career as an award-winning journalist and producer, traveling the world with an appetite to discover how food and culture intertwine. As a refugee, I have a deep connection to the Vietnamese diaspora and have always been fascinated by the resilience with which other Vietnamese people have adapted their kitchens to their new homelands. In Paris, Vietnamese culture is often hidden in plain sight, standing out yet blending in. My journey starts in the 13th, but that's just the beginning.
Oh, that was Quan 13.
Yay!
Wow, that was a really fun project to work on with you. However, for you, it must have been really challenging because it was totally bootstrapped, self-funded, all DIY with a very small team, including myself. What do you think the hardest part was, or like the biggest learning was about DIYing this project?
I would tell people this is not how you make a documentary, you know, because I absolutely did it the reverse. You know, how you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to, you know, put a team in place and then go shoot it. And I did the exact opposite. I went and shot it and then scrambled to put together a team to create it, from finding an editor who also speaks Vietnamese, since it was so essential. And thankfully I did find like another talented filmmaker, Richard Van, to edit it. And also finding you, which I think was very serendipitous. And it was through like a recommendation from another Vietnamese creative. So yeah, so I would say for my next project, now that I have in place you know, an arsenal and a team of creatives that I can pull from to collaborate with, it's going to be a much easier process.
It feels less scary, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you that I didn't write down, which is, did you conceive of this film as an excuse to go eat amazing Vietnamese food?
It was, yeah, I think you can say that. But Paris has always like been my muse. Like the first time I visited, like I knew I wanted to do something, especially about the stories of the Vietnamese community that lives there, because they, you know, they're hardworking and they're really about just, you know, putting their head down. And it's like, well, somebody needs to tell their stories. And if I don't do it, you know, as a Vietnamese person, then, you know, no one else is going to do it.
Yeah, because those stories disappear after a generation, right? They don't carry on in the same way that they do from the original source of the people doing it.
Yeah.
So definitely awesome that you were able to capture some of those really great stories. You haven't been in front of the camera for that long, and you just made that transition in the last couple of years. How does it feel to now be in front of the camera?
I will say, I think even when I was at CNN, I would always look at, the anchors and the talent and go, man, I wish I could do that. And after leaving CNN, I kind of gave myself, permission to just be in front of the camera and, not care about what other people think. And it's been a seamless transition. So.
Wow, really? Did it freak you out at first?
It did, but like the documentary itself was like one of the first times that I was on camera. But thankful for me, I was more of like a conduit, and it was really about everyone else's stories.
Right.
So
cool. So making Quan Mui Ba inspired you to learn some Vietnamese food recipes. What's been the highlight of like learning Vietnamese food?
It's funny, the thing that I see my mother like cook every day, and now I have such a newfound respect for her cooking because Vietnamese food is so full of nuance and so full of flavor, and it takes a very like powerful, distinct palate to really get right.
Interesting. I think a lot of the reason that is because so much of Vietnamese food is like either really delicately prepared ingredients or like just raw ingredients.
Yeah.
Tons of raw herbs, tons of vegetables and stuff. And for a person to train to eat Vietnamese food, it's about like tasting and smelling each and every ingredient, right? So cool. The film right now is showing at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, and I'm going to show the little graphic right now. You can get passes to view the film at festival.vcmedia.org. VC stands for Visual Communications, and it's the movie's running until the end of October 2020 for audiences in Southern California. Are there plans afterwards to make it widely available?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get it distributed, especially like non-theatrical, in that I want to get it into schools and high school and colleges so that when they talk about immigration and when they talk about refugees, that this can be used as like a learning supplement to it.
That's awesome. So since leaving like the corporate workplace, you've been focusing on your own projects, like I said, full time. Was there anything that you didn't expect to learn that you learned in the last couple of years?
It is becoming like a one-band filmmaking machine, whereas before, working with a major company,
Dozens of people.
Yeah, you have dozens of people, and now almost all of those responsibilities fall on your own shoulder,
Which is why I think it's so important for people to support and financially support independent creators these days, because that's where all the most like realistic and personal content comes from, right? Like the stuff that we're just making, from our laptops, basically.
Yeah.
Are you able to discuss any of your new projects? I know you've got a few things going on, but I don't know how secret they are.
Well, I would say that everything I do is centered around, through the lens of food. And my next documentary is going to be something that's very dear and special to my heart, as well as Vietnamese everywhere. It is about the nuance and elevating our most essential ingredient, which is fish sauce.
Yo, that's my song, bro. So hopefully my song Fish Sauce makes it in to the show. Have there been new things that you've added to your process lately that has changed?
I'm definitely a lot more methodical. Like I do a lot of lists. So, when you work for yourself, you have to be very buttoned down. So.
Or else you don't get anything done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
having that
I
focus.
have seen artifacts of your work as a producer, and also you're very popular on Instagram. I'll share your Instagram later.
Okay.
But I've seen some artifacts of your work, and definitely it's super organized, super methodical, and I'm kind of a planner, but you're like a planner with a capital P. So I wonder if you have a hot tip or like a life hack that you can share with me and the audience about how to keep things straight and moving, because that you can organize, but it doesn't always guarantee that it keeps moving.
Yeah. By nature, I am the biggest procrastinator you will ever meet. I will do anything not to do what I'm supposed to do. But the thing that keeps me on track is having accountability partners and having them, keep track and motivate you has been so helpful in my work because I don't want to let anyone else down, and so, yeah.
Definitely, working with a small team has definitely increased my level of productivity, and I think it is because of that type of accountability. So we're all working on this stuff together, and whether we're an official team or not, we're like a team.
Yeah.
Do you have...
You're like family.
Awesome. What is one skill professionally or personally that you're trying to level up on right now?
I would say my technical skills. Like, I am blown away how you're like doing all of this like by yourself. Absolutely blown away, and I need to up my A game when it comes to shooting because I'm so impressed.
Well, that's why I'm here. So I'm gonna show you the ropes. I'm gonna help you settle this stuff up.
Yay.
Because inside of your brain and your heart are incredible stories, and not just like stories as far as perspectives, but like even fictional, like creative stuff. Right? And whatever I can do to help you execute on that is I'm all in.
Yay,
So,
thank you.
So Hieu, thank you for joining me. And thanks for bringing lunch and coffee.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. So to our guest, to our audience, my guest is Hieu Gray. You can find her at hieugray.com. And I'm going to spell it for you, for the podcast listeners. HIEUGRAY.com. Our film, Quan is showing right now at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival until the end of the month, and you can find it at festival.vcmedia.org. And do you have any closing thoughts for the audience?
Well, I cannot wait to dig in to all of this delicious food, and thank you for having me. And I'm so flattered to be like the first guest on your show, and I wish you nothing but the best. It's it's great what you're doing, hearing the stories behind the creative process for all these artists and people making stuff.
Yeah, thank you for being my guest, and hang tight. I'm gonna give a little closing statement to the audience, and then we can eat some food. Awesome. Cool, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for this first episode of Coffee with BAO. If you like the show, you can support me by subscribing and leaving some feedback in the comments. Or you can contact me at coffeewithbao.com. If you can financially support me in making all of this content, you can buy me a coffee at coffeewithbao.com. Thank you so much for having Coffee with BAO. We'll see you next time. Bonus content, you guys. Hieu has a surprise for me.
So I know how much you love trying like different interesting foods. So I got you some salted egg fish skins for us to try today.
Whoa, let me see this bag. I'm gonna show this to the camera. Screenshot this, you guys. Salted egg flavored salmon fish skin chips.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it. And
Yeah.
if this ends up on the podcast, you will hear how crunchy this fish skin chips is. Ladies first.
Okay, I've been dying to try it myself too. Wow. It's a lot thicker than I was anticipating.
Oh man, don't set me up for a that's what she said joke.
Okay.
Salted egg fish skin, cheers.
Cheers.
Oh my god, I'm gonna eat the whole bag.
It kind of tastes like chicharrones,
Yeah,
kind of.
but fishy a little bit. Awesome. Thank you, Hieu.